Welcome to another video on the Mariner Biology YouTube channel. Hope this one helps. This is about the heart. So the beginning of chapter 30 talks about all about the circulatory system. And we know that the three parts of the circulatory system are the heart, the vessels, and the blood. Okay, and we can break the vessels up into three different types. There's arteries, and those are ones that carry blood away from the heart. There's veins that carry blood back to the heart, and then there's the capillaries that are the go-between. So blood travels in the arteries to the capillaries, and we learned that the capillaries are really thin, and so they can exchange materials with the cells very easily. And then once the exchange has happened, that blood goes back to the veins and gets carried back to the heart. Okay? So let's focus on the heart, okay, and we're going to look at this diagram, and the diagram is going to help us understand the flow of blood through the heart and all the different parts. Okay, so we're going to start with the biggest chamber in the heart, which is the left ventricle, and that makes sense because the left ventricle has to pump blood the greatest distance. Okay, there's two different circuits, or loops you could think of them as, that the heart has to pump to. One is called the systemic circulation, or the systemic circuit, and that's the one that carries blood everywhere in your body except your lungs. Okay, and then there's another one called the pulmonary circuit, and that's the circuit or the loop that carries blood to your lungs and back to your heart. Okay, so remember that we said that the veins carry blood back to the heart, so the pulmonary veins are going to be carrying blood back from the lungs, and there's pulmonary veins on the left side of the heart, and they're on the right side of the heart too, because you have a lung on both sides. But both those sets of pulmonary veins are going to dump blood back into the into the left atrium, and then it gets dumped into the left ventricle, and it's going to get pumped out into the aorta, and that's going to take it to the rest of the body. Okay, so there's these two large veins that are going to bring blood back to the right side of the heart. Okay, and they're called the vena cava. The superior one is the one coming from above. The inferior one is the one coming from below. And they're both, again, going to dump into the right atrium, which is going to dump into the right ventricle. Okay, and that is going to pump blood into the pulmonary artery. And that's the only artery in your body that has oxygen-poor blood. And the pulmonary veins are the only veins in your body that have oxygen-rich blood. Okay, so there's our right atrium. And there's our left atrium that we were talking about earlier. Okay, and notice how the atrial walls are a little bit thinner than the ventricular ones. And that's because those ventricles have to pump a much greater distance, right? The atrium are just getting the blood into the ventricles, so that we don't need to get the blood very far. But when we're doing with the ventricles, they have to pump a pretty good distance, so they need to be have a much thicker, stronger wall made of a special kind of muscle called cardiac muscle tissue. Okay, these green loops are circling the valves that are in between the atrium and the ventricle, and those are called AV valves for obvious reasons, because they're in between the atrium and the ventricle, right? And what they do is they prevent blood from flowing backwards. We don't want blood flowing back into the atria because that's going to back things up, and we do not want blood backing up. Okay, and then these other valves are called semilunar valves, and those are ones that are going to prevent blood from flowing back into the ventricle once it's been pumped out. All right, and then up here we have our pulmonary arteries. Okay, there's a left and a right pulmonary artery, and we need a left and right because, again, we have two lungs. All right, and then we have our pulmonary veins labeled there on the right side of this person's heart, and then down below is what we call the descending aorta, and that's the part of the aorta that brings blood to the lower part of your body. Okay, and I think now if you understand that the right side of the heart is the blue side, and that's the side that's carrying oxygen poor blood, and the left side of the heart is the pink or red side that's carrying oxygen rich blood. And you can follow these arrows showing the path of blood through the heart, then you should be good. Okay, so I hope this one helps. Thanks a lot.